Welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us for the Accelerating Client Engagement and Automating Processes with Apps webinar, where we're joined by Sam Moore from Burness Paull as well to go through their case study. So just run you through a quick agenda. So I'm going to do a bit of a brief Fliplet introduction today. I will keep it very brief. I know we've got a number of existing clients on, but also prospects. So we'll give you a brief introduction to what Fliplet do and what we are. Then we'll go through the main bit and the bit you've joined to see, which is the Burness Paull Case Study, and then give you a few more examples of client engagement and process automation apps that are out there in the app stores and in our studios templates. And then we will aim to have at least 5 or 10 minutes for Q&A at the end of the session. So we should be around 35 to 45 minutes in total. So just a few reminders. I know we're all zoomed out, so I think everybody knows the rules by now. So please stay on mute. Please keep your camera off. You can ask questions, and we really want you to ask questions for the end. If you can put them in chat though, it's good for you because you don't have to then wait and remember what you want to ask at the end. And my colleague Dave will collate those and ask them to myself and Sam at the end of the presentations. So let me just give you a quick 2 minutes on Fliplet and what we are. So Fliplet basically is a prefab app builder. So the beauty is most of the work is done for you. So you can build fantastic, efficient apps where 95% of the work is already done. You can optimize it with code. It's open source, so you can, if you are a coder, you can add code to it to make them even better. So with that, it's a broad set of drag and drop features to make it easy. You can see there, this is just a sample of some of the functionality within Fliplet, so news feeds, quizzes, tests, forums, discussions, surveys, etc. And the publishing and distribution can be native apps to public app stores, to enterprise app stores. You can do responsive web apps or a file download. And all of the app infrastructure is handled for you by the Fliplet system. So layout and content, app access and distribution. And as I say, again, it is open source. So you can create your own components within Fliplet as well. So that's a very quick overview of what the platform is. But what we're really here today to talk about is the Burness Paull case study. So if I stop sharing my screen, and then I'll let Sam introduce himself. So Sam, perhaps if we start with just giving a quick introduction of yourself and your role at Burness Paull, and then how you came to find Fliplet.
Yeah, certainly. So hi, everybody. My name is Sam. I'm the innovation manager with Burness Paull's commercial law firm in Scotland. I'm responsible for the firm's innovation agenda and roadmap, essentially. And that's both internal efficiency projects as well as client-facing projects that have changed or improved the way we deliver legal services. And how we came to discover Fliplet really goes back to a particular challenge that we had in our private client team around wills and will writing. Unfortunately, Scots law being what it is, we can't do entirely online wills, which is a shame. Unlike England, where you can form a will online, in Scotland you can't. You still have a wet ink requirement at the end of the process. And that we felt was holding our will writing process back a little bit, to be fair, especially during lockdown, where clients couldn't come into the office for a cup of tea and the usual face-to-face conversation with a solicitor to write a will. And we were noticing a drop-off in instructions during lockdown because people obviously couldn't do that. And who wants to be on the phone or even a Zoom call for 2 hours speaking to a solicitor about their estate? Is quite a tiring process. So speaking with the private client solicitors in that team, they were saying to me, we have to do something else. We've tried sending clients a big spreadsheet, fill in all your details about your estate and your assets and your family on this big old spreadsheet and send it back. Clients hate it. Absolutely hated that approach. The spreadsheet was just really big and half it would be irrelevant to them, and they put things in the wrong boxes. And there'd be so many missed questions or incomplete questions that our solicitors hated it too, because they would inevitably be on a call for an hour anyway, checking, did you mean to put that answer in that box? Shouldn't have been down there. A very inefficient process. So a lot of wasted time going into the process from our side, a lot of friction for the client, not a fun experience, but you had to get through it to get to what the client might see as the good bits, which is, so tell me what my options are, what can I do with my estate? So the challenge there was, how do we fix it? How do we give clients a better solution, not just now, but also beyond return to work? And what we were coming across in our internal conversations was, well, there should be an app for this. And I personally tend to push back on people saying, can I have an app for? I like to push in and say, is it really the best solution? Is an app the way to go? In this case, it was. It was, and the comparison we came to were things like financial planning apps that a lot of us use on our phones these days. And understanding the fact that, yeah, if you've got a fairly straightforward estate, maybe it just takes 20 minutes on your phone just to blast through the questions and give us what we need. If you've got a more complicated estate, maybe a lot of buy-to-let investment properties, that sort of thing, maybe you want to sit at a computer, at a laptop or a desktop and use a nice interface to provide all the details. The last thing you want is a spreadsheet. So we shouldn't be doing that. And looking around what we had available, we didn't have anything in our sort of tech toolbox, if you will, that would allow us to do something like easily create a client-facing app. We had never done that before. So Burness Paull didn't have any apps up until this point. So looking around the marketplace, we thought it was, first of all, an obvious synergy to go for a low-code platform. At the time, we didn't have a lot of in-house developer resource. We now have a lot more of that, partly from the success of this project. But at the time, we didn't have a team of developers who we could task with creating an app from scratch. Just didn't have that resource. Similarly, we didn't really want to go down the conventional route of engaging an app developer or a one-off project to create this app. Very cost prohibitive. And we had to keep in mind the fact that all this will writing work is generally going to be fixed fee, or at least capped fee. It's not really, really big numbers here. They're quite small numbers. So we had to create a solution that was very cost effective, that we could roll out fairly quickly, but that gave the client an experience that they didn't hate, frankly. It had to be easy. It had to be straightforward. And the back end of it had to be an output to our fee earner, our solicitors, which was, here is all the data that you need to start thinking about the client's estate. And Fliplet I'd heard of from different conferences and different event portfolios. So I'd come across the product before as a low code app builder. So that's how we got started and how I met you, Chris.
Absolutely. And did you, so you said a lot of good things there, a lot of interesting things that made me think. So you talked about challenges around large spreadsheets and things like that. And I remember the conversations early when we first met, but large spreadsheets don't tend to adapt well into apps. So how did you go around that process of looking at how you would transfer this if an app is going to be the solution? And what are the challenges you have internally with that, with the people side, bringing the people along with you as well?
Mm-hmm. Well, the first part of that was to start with the spreadsheet. So we started with our big spreadsheet, and I had a couple of sessions that I would now describe as lean, although the people in the room didn't necessarily know that's what we were doing. I didn't want to over terminology the situation, but we ran a lean session where we ran through the process end to end as if I were a client coming along and doing this. And every single question, they got sick of me saying this, but I pushed the team and said, why do we ask that question? So why is that question important? And also, do we have to know that now? Could we just have a question like, do you have any overseas properties? Yes or no? At this stage in the process, do we have to ask them where they are and what they're worth? Can we not just say yes or no for now until we get into the conversational part, the fact-finding bits? Can we cut that right down to just what are the big questions that you need to ask now? Because they will very much dictate the direction of travel for the conversation. And once the solicitors got into that mindset, they realized that actually, yeah, front loading the process is not necessarily the best way to do this. There are some questions that we need to know up front, but it may be enough to know that, yes, that might be an issue over there. We'll come back to that. And once we kind of got into that flow, we realized that there's not as many questions that we need to know up front as we thought there were, which cuts the spreadsheet right down, if you will. But we then spent a bit of time thinking about the conditionality of some of those questions and realizing that a good 50% of these questions will be irrelevant to people who have very simple estates. So that was also very helpful to recognize that we shouldn't be asking questions, follow-up questions, if you will, of the client if they're not applicable. And we were able to range that the time to complete the questionnaire, the spreadsheet, could range from 5 minutes in a very simple case to hours of time if you've got a complex case. And we kind of took those two fringe ends and said, well, if I was the simple client and I was the complex client, do we end up having a similar experience if we cut out all of these questions and follow-ups? And the answer was, yeah, you can get to a fairly good baseline. And then we don't have to necessarily be all things to all people at this point, just enough to get us started, because that's the first hurdle in will writing. It's getting the conversation off the ground The worst thing to happen is the client, several hours in the conversation says, "Oh, actually, yes, I do have a first marriage that I didn't mention earlier, and I have got 3 children in the first marriage." And you think that's fairly fundamental, actually, to to your estate planning. So, knowing that kind of fact up front is really, really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And just, I don't want to jump to the solution, because you're going to show us the solution in a while and talk through it. But presumably part of the solution as well, not only have you optimized the process and you've made the process better, you've added additional things, which I think you'll talk about later. But also, surely the solicitors, and I think they probably realized early in the discovery of what you needed for the app, that they're going to save time from this. Was that an early discovery with them, that they were actually going to get time, as well as a better process, a better product, they were going to get a time saving as well?
Yep, they realized that very early on. And I'll give you a very particular example. I asked the lawyers in that team, so what are the things that come up again and again that you just spend time doing, the kind of pet peeves, if you will? And they said postcodes are a big problem. When they ask clients to explain, where do you live, do you own other properties, etc., they always say in the spreadsheet, including a postcode. And apparently clients regularly didn't include the postcode. And then you've got to spend time on the Royal Mail website or Google Maps or whatever, trying to find the postcode, because that'd be quicker than waiting for a response from the client saying, "What's your postcode?" And that's just wasted time. And it may only be 5 minutes, but it happens quite regularly. And saying to the solicitor as well, if we make that question mandatory, that will never happen again. The client will have to give you the postcode, and you never ever have that problem again. And you instantly think about how many minutes or hours a year will that add up to and save time. That's just one example. So a few of those sprinkled through the early conversations helped everyone understand, okay, if we get even part of this right, that's going to save a lot of time.
Yeah, definitely. And your project management and lean skills are shining through, because giving stakeholders some quick wins early doors gets them on board, doesn't it? And I love the fact as well that it sounds like you were using the 5 whys, which I've used numerous times over the years, which if you can ask why 5 times and you get an answer at the end of it, then you know you do need to do it. If not, then you're going down the wrong path. So brilliant. So just going back to why Fliplet, I suppose. I know you had a look around the market. I know we talked about this before, and you did look at what was available. So was there anything specific that jumped out that helped you make the decision that Fliplet was the right platform for you to use?
There were a couple of things in particular that I think were key to the decision. So one of them was the editor. So the way the studio editor looks and feels is very, very user-friendly. And I particularly liked that with only maybe one button click, you can swap from editing modes to preview mode. So you can quickly just check and see how is this going to look on a certain device. And you can choose, I want to look at an iPhone XR, and it will show you the scale and everything on that particular device. And then popping back over to the editing view is one click. And we found that really, really attractive to be able to try things out and then do a quick check. Okay, I'll go back and try something else. So that was really, really helpful. We also appreciated the fact that the Fliplet team were going to do an awful lot of hand-holding first time out if we needed it, which was great. So getting really good product experts from the Fliplet side to come regularly on calls with us and talk about, okay, how's your development coming, bounce ideas around, get their expert view on things. And some of the back office stuff, like getting our app into the App Store. Now, I was very naive about how complicated a process it's going to be to have the firm signed up as an app developer with the Apple Store and the Google Play Store and get our app in the store. It's harder than I thought. But again, working with the Fliplet team, that was made much easier because your colleagues were there to say, okay, this happens in our experience. You need to do this, this, and this. Then it'll be okay. And we actually got everything through first time, which I'm told is not necessarily a common thing to occur. So that was also a very big part of the package, was the support that comes with it.
Brilliant, superb. And I think the launching through the App Store is quite unique. And we talk through with every new client that process. One great thing I think now is we get, and luckily I missed it, I joined 18 months ago, but we get every new starter to launch their own app through that process now. So they understand your pain, Sam. They understand the pain that you go through. So
I've definitely learned, don't push the go button on Christmas Eve.
Absolutely. Time it right.
Yeah.
So I think, and again, I think everybody on the call wants to hear about the actual solution and see the solution. So the actual end product was called the ScotWill app. So it'd be great now if you take sort of 5-6 minutes just to talk us through exactly what it does, how it works, And I'll put some screenshots on the screen as well so people can have a look at it if that's okay.
Yep, sounds good.
Fantastic. Okay, so let me pop those up. There we go.
All right, well, I think I'll start with what it doesn't do. As I mentioned earlier, it doesn't give you a will at the end of this process. You don't have a will because that's unfortunately not how legislation works in Scotland in this area. The main purpose of the app is a fact-finding app. That's the main thing that it does, but as I'm going to show you in a minute, not the only thing it does. So the first image there on the left is just the main menu. So all kind of done in white label, so all of our kind of corporate branding is there. And that I find particularly easy to do. It's very straightforward to get the app looking exactly how you want it to look. So the second screen there is part of the fact-finding exercise. So that's the main thing. When a client comes to us and is looking for a will, we'll give them either a link or a QR code or what have you to say, there's the app. We'll set you up an account, log yourself in and start filling in the fact find. And this is a series of screens that the client goes through answering questions. And some, as you can see, are mandatory. So we've got some with the asterisk showing these are mandatory questions. And you've got the usual variety of things. You've got free text fields, radio buttons, drop-down menus, all the things you would expect to be able to do. So we actually spent quite a lot of time discussing internally which is the right input method of various questions. It's a fun topic. It took a lot more time than I thought it would to discuss as a radio button better than a drop-down menu for a particular question. So as the client goes through, you've got a progress bar at the top so you can see how you're doing in that section. And I don't have the index here, but there's an index of sections too. So you can jump around. So you can do, okay, I'll talk about me first, and then I'll go down to property, and then I'll go to children, and then I'll go somewhere else. You can jump around as you want, and it saves your progress as you go. We found that was a really important feature because with the best will in the world, most people don't sit down and do this kind of thing in one go. They've normally got things to do. They've got a spare half an hour somewhere. I'll jump on the app and I'll answer a few questions and I'll go to something else. You can also go between devices and desktop as well. So that's really helpful. Some clients said, I'd rather use a desktop to do this. That's fine. It scales up into a desktop and a web app. The one you're looking at here, I think is probably iPhone, but yeah, probably iPhone. Yeah. So you go through the fact find. And when you get to the end, you've got a little kind of confirm you're finished and you're happy to go button. You push yes, I'm happy with that. You hit submit. That then locks down that part of the app, and the team automatically get a notification into an inbox that we've set up that says Sam, the client reference number here, has completed his fact find. Go on into the admin back end of the app, and we can now pull the data out. Almost ironically, in a spreadsheet, but it's in a spreadsheet of just data that we know the format and is all just right, which lends itself to mail merging down the line, of course. Yeah. For now, it's just the kind of fact finding thing is the main core of the app. The third screen there was an idea we had quite early on in the project about how do we give clients a reason to keep this app on their devices after they've got their will, because wills are often kind of one and done situations. Clients come in, they get a will, we put it in a safe or something similar, and then you don't see them again usually, and that's a shame. We'd like to engage with our clients more often and check that their estate planning is still appropriate, because people's lives change, their assets change, their families change. So the idea here was, what if we have in the app a very simple button that the client can use to say to us, hey, something's happened, that a life event's happened. I've got married, we've had a new child, we've adopted somebody, we've bought a new house, these kind of things that might have an impact on your estate planning. Through the notify major life change feature, the client can just drop down menu and say what's happened, or other additional comments there as well. And do you prefer telephone or email contact? And then we will call you back. So the client might say, oh, I've great news, I've had a new child, so we'll put that in there. Say I prefer to be called by telephone, put a number in there to be contacted on, hit submit. The same private client team get an email saying, Sam's notified you of a life change, call him back. Here's the number. And then the team calls you back and discusses our current estate planning and is there a change that we'd recommend to reflect the new life change. So that was an entirely new feature. We didn't have anything like that before. We didn't just randomly go through our wills and say, I'm going to phone Sam and see how he's doing these days, and if that will I wrote 6 months ago is still right. Didn't do that. Whereas now we have a very easy way of getting in touch if clients would like to keep that on their phone. Optional, of course, but we do explain it's handy to be able to do that. Yeah. The FAQs as well, there's also some client guides, just kind of content there to help demystify some of the content. So we often say to the clients when they're using this app, you come across a term you're not sure about, check the FAQs and see if it explains what we mean by that. And we have got some plans in future, and I'll talk about future plans a bit later, but there's an idea about, can we connect these things together so that you've got like a hover over buttons or sort of short taps where you can say, okay, what counts as an estate? And it might go to the FAQ saying, what is an estate? Just trying to help put more value into the app. And client guides are more in-depth guides about, for example, child trusts. What is a child trust? When might you want one? A bit more in-depth than an FAQ, but a similar idea. And it's also the usual directory part as well in the contact us section, so you can see all the team members and get their email addresses, their phone numbers, so you can always contact somebody if you need any particular questions.
Superb. And I think, I mean, there's a few things I love, Sam, and going through the project as I did with you. I think the great thing is not only did you take an internal process that you wanted to change, you wanted to modernize, you wanted to make more efficient, but you then, so you've got that in the second screenshot there. But the third one, it's a totally new feature that you didn't have before, and you were very open to adding new things to the app as we went through the build process. And then even the FAQs, that's a great value add, isn't it? It's a great value add for your clients to get within the app. And I think you're using notifications as well to notify users of changes to law and things like that. So that's so different, and you were very open to new things as we went through the project, which was brilliant. So what's the early successes that you've seen from it then, Sam? I know it's been live a little while, not too long, but it's been live a little while now. I know you've already seen some success. So can you talk us through a couple of examples of success you've had already with clients with it?
Yeah, certainly. We every year in January, there's always a rush of new instructions. People think, oh, it's a new year, I'm going to get my estate planning sorted out. We always have a big bump in users for this sort of service in January from employees too, as there's an employee rate for doing this kind of thing at the firm, as is common in many law firms. So all of those people from the business coming in to do this were directed towards the app. And for a lot of them, especially in the more junior ends, quite simple estate planning, to be honest. They're probably at a stage of life where they may have a mortgage, they probably don't have a family, and it's quite straightforward. And all they want to do is leave everything to a sibling or to a partner or what have you. Some feedback on those areas was they can just click not applicable to screens of stuff here and whip through it in 5 minutes and they're done.
Brilliant.
And that's just really, really straightforward. It's actually faster than just reading and skimming. The spreadsheet approach in the old days is actually faster because you can skip right past entire sections that you know are not applicable.
Brilliant.
So some very, very good feedback from a very simple example. The more complex end of the spectrum, what we're hearing is that being able to pick it up and put it down and come back to it later is really appreciated. So some people have a spare 10 minutes and they kind of do a little section, they kind of come out for an hour, they'll come back to it later. That's been going down very, very well, and it's not quite as easy with the spreadsheet because doing that on your phone, it's not going to be fun. This is very straightforward on a mobile device. If you're sitting, maybe not so much recently, but if you were sitting on a train doing a bit of commuting, perfect time to pull this out and just finish off that section you're almost done with. So very good feedback there as well in terms of how easy that's going to be to do. And we've had a couple of people say this life change thing is quite a cool idea because they don't necessarily need or want to remember an individual person's details to think, oh, I really must contact so-and-so at the firm to check on my estate planning. I can just use this button and somebody will call me back. Very straightforward as well, very, very convenient. So early feedback has been very positive. We've had one individual who was actually another employee of the firm who got halfway through the spreadsheet version and we told them to, okay, stop, start again, do it this way. So we've had some really, really good feedback from that person, being able to say, oh, it's night and day.
Wow.
That was the first way was frustrating and stressful. This is actually not fun as such, but it's close. It's pretty close. It's not stressful. So very, very good feedback.
If you can change filling in information about a will to be fun, I think that's a major success, Sam. But
people like answering questions about themselves.
Yeah,
I suppose. So nice format.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about future iterations? I know this is something we've spoken about briefly, but what are the future plans for the app then? You talked right at the start glowingly about Fliplet, and I'll have to get used to do some demos of Studio, because I think you're going to be much better than me at doing them. But Fliplet is easy to iterate and update and future-proof apps. What are the plans for ScotWill going forward?
So a couple of quite big ideas we've got kicking around. One is to do with power of attorney. So we currently only ask a couple of questions that are just, do you have a power of attorney? Yes or no. Would you like one? Yes or no. And that's it for the moment. But we think it'd be relatively straightforward to bolt on a section at the end to also work on that. So we have that option as well. Probably very straightforward expansion, quite a logical one as well. Beyond that, we've got some thoughts about notifications of relevant changes of legislation or things as well. A good example might be a child trust. Let's say if we've created one for you, if we can find a way of the app being aware that you have a child trust or you expressed interest in one, then we may be able to use push notifications to serve up targeted content to those clients, only the ones who might find that relevant, that they know, here's an article about child trusts or an incoming change of law. So being able to really personalize the push content to clients is kind of next on our radar of how can we do that, and how can we make sure that what the app is serving up to each client is directly relevant to their estate planning as we understand it.
Brilliant. No, fantastic. And I think presumably the power of attorney piece is a really good one, because presumably that's going to give you leads into business development, so into more fee earning business.
Yep, certainly.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Thank you, Sam. Really appreciate that. So that's the Burness Paull case study for now, but we'll come back to Sam in 5 minutes or so. What I wanted to do is just give everybody just a few examples of other client engagement and process automation apps that some firms have done with us, and one from our studio. But again, I know Sam's the main pull for today, so I don't want to spend too long doing this. So we'll spend a few minutes doing this, and then we'll move into questions. So the first one is Evershed's Employment and Pensions app. So this has been around a couple of years now. You can see on the screen, available web, tablet, and mobile format. Freely available in the app stores, and a fantastic app for content, for information. Now covers, and this has been updated recently with more jurisdictions and across more regions. You can browse and compare information in there. So again, the leads and the interaction that Eversheds get from this app is fantastic, and they're constantly iterating on it. They're constantly updating it. The great thing with this type of app and this type of content as well is very easily, and sort of what Sam said earlier, and I didn't lead him into it, I promise. They've also turned into a commercial contracts guide. So a totally separate area of the business. Very easily, just by changing out some of the content, you can deliver a whole new app for a whole new sector. And again, the business development side of the business can benefit from that greatly. And it's very easy to do that. Just quickly on the Crane 11, so US firm Crane 11, who we work with, converted their advertising litigation report just over a year ago with us into an app. And it's fantastic. Far more interaction than you get from the previous process, manual process that they had. You can register for webinars on it. You get the latest reports on there. You can search the archive reports as well. So a more interactive, a more iterative process than they had previously. And then the Mills and Reeve one is actually, it's an internal app for What the Tech. So basically to help the firm with their tech hub to find out what tech should I be using for a certain solution. They had internally a myriad of processes, not just one, but numerous processes for people to find out what they should be using. It was messy, didn't really work right. People were using the wrong tech for the wrong solution. And they built what they describe and I describe as a very simple but effective solution to make it far easier. And you can see from a couple of the screenshots there, it really is a workflow process to find a solution to what technology you need to use. And it's actually won 2 awards already. And I know already this year they're putting in for 2 more awards for What the Tech. So really good example of how you can change a messy internal process into a really efficient one using the technology. And then finally, just that, and we've got this template in our studio right now, and it is basically set up to do expenses, but it is a workflow template. So for simple expenses, fantastic. I can submit expenses, my manager can sign them off, I can upload images. But this type of workflow can be used for many, many examples. It doesn't have to be for expenses. And that's why I think it really is a process-driven template that can be manipulated. And I know we've got numerous clients over the last 5-6 months that have worked with myself and the CS team internally to change this for different reasons. So it's definitely one to have a look at. And if you go onto the website and sign into Studio, you can download this and have a play with it, and you can see the workflow in action and how the process actually works. So really good one to start off with, to have a look at and play around with. So I think that's all of that for today. So if I bring Sam back in, and hopefully my colleague Dave has got some questions for the last 5 or 6 minutes. I think we're at about 33 minutes so far, so we've a little bit of time left. So Dave, have we got any questions?
We have indeed.
Let me stop sharing my screen.
I think most of them are going to be directed at you, Sam, so apologies.
I like that.
Yeah, exactly. Gives you a break, Chris. So in terms of sort of questions, quite a few here. So one was, how did you go about gathering the right stakeholders to run the lean session that you mentioned around your sort of question set?
Mm-hmm. So a couple of ways went about this. There was a technical and an informal approach. So the technical approach was I simply checked who records the most time with the word will in the time recording narrative, which you get some false positives, of course, but it balanced out. And I was able to then tell across the business, we spend X hours by the narratives preparing wills, and these half dozen people look to be doing the majority of that work. And then I just took that information to the partner in charge of that team and said, can you check, it's a gut check for you, is this right? Are these the people who actually spend the time doing this work? I mean, missing anybody, for example, is there a paralegal who doesn't record time but spends a lot of time on this? And in that case, the answer was yes, actually, there's two paralegals who spend a lot of time with those early conversations, and they don't record time in this way. So you need those people as well. So a combination of data-driven decision-making there, and also just asking the partner in charge of that team, just what do you think? Yeah, you tell me who the stakeholders are. And then, of course, we had to add in some ones that are fairly obvious. IT are a stakeholder, obviously, of that situation. So somebody from IT came with us the whole way through.
Perfect. Thanks for that. Someone said, why didn't you include the document automation element, at least for the first draft, for the lawyer?
So a couple of the reasons why. The first one is that our power of attorneys are automated already. So we already have a doc automation solution for part of that. We don't have doc automation for wills. The reason for that is that by and large, most people who come to Burness Paull for a will, apart from our own employees, have fairly complex affairs. We're not a high street law firm. We generally don't see a lot of customers coming in and saying, I need very, very simple mirror will, my partner and I, everything to each other. We don't get a lot of that business. We tend to have people coming in who've got very complex affairs and they need a lot of bespoke work on their will drafting. So most of our will drafting ends up being quite bespoke. Having said that, I do think there is some opportunities here to do at least the bones of the matter to get it started. And I think that probably is next. I think the process we've been through to make the app has challenged that preconception amongst the lawyers that we can't automate this too bespoke. I now think we probably could automate at least half of it, and we should. We're just not quite there yet, but we are speaking to our automation provider about that now, thanks to partly this process.
Perfect, thank you. And what advice would you give to a firm who's considering using a low-code, no-code platform for, creating a mobile app?
I think the first thing I would say is pick a very simple use case to start with. Our app is now out there and working, but in hindsight, we were a little ambitious with what we thought we could do the first time out. We maybe should have started smaller. It would have been easier. So pick something very, very simple, very easy use case and start there. And just build on that experience and build on that confidence to try the next thing. And go a bit more complex as you go up the scale. So start small, I think, is very important. But I would also say that just because you've got a low-code platform doesn't mean you shouldn't put a bit of code in it. And with Fliplet, I found the developers and the team were very quick to say, oh yeah, you could do an off-the-shelf little module there, but with a couple of JavaScript lines, we could tweak that and make it even better. So I think low-code is a fantastic option for people, especially in my position, who've got a little bit of knowledge about this, but not a lot. But don't think that means you can't have any good whatsoever. The hybrid solution might be even better.
Yeah, which brings actually nicely on. Someone did say, you mentioned that you've now got more developer resource. If Fliplet is so good and largely no code, why do you need developers?
Because the developers are not really focused on client-facing solutions right now. The developers are back of the stage. They're working on things like our SharePoint resources. They're working on process automation internally. We would never use, I don't think, a Fliplet-like product to do something entirely sort of back of stage. Probably not. There are quicker not as pretty ways of doing that work, and the developers will be using JavaScript or Python or Ruby or whatever to do this kind of work, those kind of projects. Client-facing individual freestanding products, I think a product like Fliplet is right for that because they're containerized, they're consistent branding, they just sit separately, and a lot of that kind of presentation work is kind of done for you. So I think it's a combination of two different use cases, and for the time being, at least, our developer resources are quite focused internally, and our Flipper use cases are external.
Perfect. And I'll give you a bit of a break. I've got a question that's coming for Chris as well. The question is, could the expenses template that you showed be used for something else, like fee earning jobs or for associates and trainees? Sorry.
A great question, brilliant question. Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, that also sounds like things like capacity management. We've got a number of firms right now that there's a number of firms that have already got capacity management apps with us, and a number of firms building them right now. But you could do it for availability for work. Yeah, absolutely, with the same sort of workflow, but also indicators and directories to show who's available and when they're available. So yeah, most definitely, yes.
Perfect, thank you. Then two more questions for you, Sam, and I think we probably give you a bit of a break.
Brilliant.
In terms of, I guess, getting the app out there onto the app stores, you mentioned that was challenging, or could have been challenging. Why so?
We had never seen the process before, so I think as an organization, we were maybe a little naive in thinking, oh, it can't be that difficult. You sign up for an account and you upload your source code, and that's going to be it, isn't it? It's actually quite a lot of questions. So a lot of questions we were not expecting, and without Fliplet's help, I'm not sure we would have known where to find the answer. And once you've done it once, I now understand okay, that's how you do that. But if we were completely on our own, I think we would have spent quite a lot of time Googling the questions to try and understand what do they mean? What are they asking us for? And a lot of maybe not hugely logical decisions if you're not an experienced developer. I'm sure if you are, you could be honest thinking, it's not that hard. But if you're not a developer, it's not particularly intuitive. So I think that was the issue there, is we didn't really understand some of the questions because they were quite technical.
Perfect. And then the last one that had come in was, obviously you've now launched the first app as such. So what other sort of solutions are now being looked at from you guys now this project is completed?
So although I did just say we're using Fliplet for entirely client-facing solutions, we are looking at that expenses template. Because expenses is a pain point we've had in the past. Not recently, of course, because we're not going anywhere. No one's going to lunches, no one's traveling. So that's been less of an issue, but it will come back when things resume whatever new normal there's going to be. So we are looking at our expenses process, and might that template be a good leg up as to how we deal with that. We're also having one eye on the return of events. So we used to host a lot of events as a business. And right before lockdown started last year, we were looking at our biggest ever event that we'd ever hosted in Edinburgh. And we're very excited about it. And at that time, we were thinking, oh, if we had more time, an event app that people can get when they sign in, they can QR code the app with all the agenda and maybe slides and voting buttons, so on. That'd be really, really interesting. If only we have more time to think about that. We've now had a lot of time to think about it. And we think that a Burness Paull events app is probably quite a good idea, because that will be a part of BD and learning that we're excited about getting back to. So that's probably next on our agenda, is do we want to create a Burness Paull events app?
Okay. One last question. Sorry, I know I said that was the last one. I told a fib. Someone asked a question. What was your answering that one?
Okay, one more.
How did you actually promote the app?
Well, one of the question means with our clients or with our own stakeholders. I'll answer both. So with our own stakeholders, internally, just internal newsletters and internal mail shots, everyone knows, here we've got this cool new thing, especially in January, where we do ask especially our new starts, especially our trainees, do you want a will? Here's the bespoke rate for having it done, and here's the link to the App Store with our app on it. So quite direct chatting about it internally. With clients, we actually haven't promoted it all that much with clients yet. Instead, what we're doing is when clients come to us anyway, we're now saying, would you like to use this process to tell us about your estates? It's easier, it's quicker. If you'd rather just go on a couple of hours of a Zoom call with a lawyer, that's fine, we can do that. We give them the option. I think in future, we might start to make more of a song and dance about the app. We might use it more as a marketing tool. Just now, I don't think we're using it as a marketing tool. we're using it as a value add to clients who've come to us anyway. I think that will change the more comfortable the business gets with like an app-focused marketing strategy, because this is new to us. It is our first app, and at the moment our only app. But in time, I think we'll see the marketing value of it, and we'll probably more actively promote it in various blogs, websites, mail shots, what have you, about this new function.
Brilliant.
Perfect.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Dave. Brilliant questions, everyone, as well. Thank you. Just one last thing from me, just before we close. So just a little bit of final advertising. So we have got another webinar. Our next webinar is on Wednesday, the 5th of May, in association with ILTA. So it's Enjoy Responsibly, Sustainably Scale Your Firm's Mobile Apps, where our CEO, Ian Broome, and our Commercial Director, Mike Gallup, will be talking through our accelerator program and how we help law firms deliver 5 mobile apps within an 8-week period. So please, if you can, join us for that. So yeah, all that's left to say, thank you for everyone for attending. Really hope you enjoyed it, and big thanks to Sam. I think that was great, Sam. Really interesting to see what you've done, and yeah, look forward to watching what Burness Paull do in the future. So thank you, everybody. Stay safe and have a great rest of the day or evening. Thank you very much.